The brass key sat alone on the mantel, beside a chipped mug that still smelled faintly of tea and sawdust. Elena Dawes ran her thumb along its teeth, remembering how her father used to leave it there, for whoever's last in. It had been only 3 weeks since his funeral. The farmhouse, once lively with the hum of the kettle and her father's radio, felt airless now. Dust motes drifted through the shafts of pale morning light that crept between the heavy curtains. Elena was 41 and tired from probate forms, condolences, and the unspoken tension with her younger half-brother Gareth, who had already started talking about property value. He'd brought his wife Vanessa to help with the admin. Vanessa had a clipped, bright tone that belonged more to estate agents than family gatherings. She arrived armed with folders, spreadsheets, and a tray of gluten-free muffins for focus. "Elena," Vanessa said that morning, entering without knocking, "I've been through the solicitor's documents. There's something we need to formalize. A short-term occupancy note." Elena frowned. "Occupancy? This is my home." "Well," Vanessa said, flipping through pages, "technically, until probate finishes, the estate is in limbo. Gareth and I have a buyer lined up, but the solicitor insists on noting who's in residence. It's just administrative." Elena stared at her. "Administrative? You want me to sign something that says I'm a tenant in my father's house?" "Not a tenant. A temporary occupant. It protects everyone." Vanessa smiled thinly. "You wouldn't want complications, would you?" That evening, Gareth arrived with his lawyer friend from Harrogate, all cheerful bravado. "It's just formality. Don't make it emotional." She folded her arms. "You're asking me to sign away rights I haven't even read." "It's temporary," he said again, voice softening as if she were a child. "You've got your own flat in Leeds. It's not like you'll stay forever. I came here to handle Dad's estate. I'm not going anywhere until it's settled." Vanessa's expression tightened. "That's not up to you, actually. It's up to the executor." "And who's the executor?" Elena asked, though she already suspected. Vanessa's smile returned. "Gareth, of course. Dad signed the will amendment 2 years ago." Later, alone in the sitting room, Elena unfolded the document they'd pressed into her hands. It was titled Occupancy Agreement, Dawes Estate Provisional. Her name was printed beneath licensee. The landlord line read G. Dawes. She felt her chest tighten. There, in small print, was the clause. The licensee acknowledges no claim to ownership and agrees to vacate within 14 days upon written notice from the landlord or appointed agent. Elena set the papers down. The chipped mug caught her eye again, the one her father used daily, a tiny crack running down its side. She remembered him once saying, "Every crack shows use, not weakness." She lifted the mug gently. Beneath it lay a folded slip of yellowing paper, the corner just visible. She pulled it free. An old letterhead from Fenn and Rowe solicitors, handwritten in her father's looping scrawl. "Hold all property under Section 12. Agricultural Family Trust. Keep deed unmerged until both children sign." Her breath caught. The brass key glinted under the light. She didn't know what Section 12 meant yet, but she knew one thing. Her father had left a clue. The next morning, Vanessa's car was already in the drive, boot open, full of boxes. "Just getting ahead," she chirped. "Packing some things that'll need sorting before valuation." Elena stepped onto the porch. "Whose things?" "Yours mainly. Don't look at me like that. I'm just being practical." Elena's hands tightened around the brass key. "You're touching nothing else in this house without me here." Vanessa raised an eyebrow. "Gareth said you'd say that. You really don't trust anyone, do you?" "Not anyone who calls this place a property instead of a home." For a moment the two women stood there, the silence stretching thin and taut as the line on a will signature. Then Vanessa smiled again, that brittle professional smile, and closed the boot. That night, Elena sat at the kitchen table with her father's old paperwork spread before her. Land registry printouts, tax notes, a tangle of legal jargon she could barely follow. But one phrase kept echoing from his note: "Keep deed unmerged until both children sign." She opened her laptop and searched the term. A local council webpage blinked up. "Unmerged title. Prevents ownership transfer until specified conditions are met under Section 12 of the Agricultural Holdings Act." Elena leaned back. A small stunned laugh escaped her. If her father had kept the property under an agricultural trust, Gareth couldn't sell or evict anyone until both siblings signed consent. She looked at the brass key again and whispered, "You clever old man." Outside, the wind rattled the windows. From somewhere upstairs came the faint thump of a door. The kind that reminds you you're not alone, even when you wish you were. 2 days later, the sound of tires on gravel broke the morning stillness. Elena looked up from the kitchen table where she'd been cataloging her father's files. Through the window, she saw a white hatchback with Holroyd Property Services stenciled on the side, a name that didn't belong in her driveway. Vanessa stepped out first, heels sinking into the soft earth. Behind her came a man in a navy jacket with a clipboard. "Morning," he called out with forced cheer. "Routine inspection. I'm Carl Holroyd. Gareth's instructed me to assess the property for valuation." Elena dried her hands on a tea towel and stepped outside. "You can assess from the lane. This house isn't on the market." Carl glanced at Vanessa, uncertain. "I was told the executor requested it." "I'm the resident," Elena said evenly. "And until probate concludes, any valuation requires written consent from both beneficiaries." "Has Gareth provided that?" Vanessa's lips thinned. "Elena, don't be difficult. The sale benefits us all. Dad would want this sorted." Elena took a slow breath. "Dad would want his wishes honored, which is why we'll wait until the solicitor confirms what Section 12 means." Carl shifted uncomfortably, mumbling something about his schedule. Vanessa's smile stiffened into something icy. "Fine. But don't expect sympathy when you're paying for maintenance on a house you can't afford." Elena didn't reply. She simply locked the door behind her. One deliberate click that sounded louder than any argument. That afternoon, Elena walked into Fenn and Rowe Solicitors, clutching her father's note. The receptionist recognized her immediately. "You're Mr. Dawes's daughter, yes? I'm sorry for your loss. I need to speak with whoever handled his agricultural deeds," Elena said. A bespectacled man appeared from the corridor. "That'd be me," he said, offering a hand. "Martin Rowe. Come in." His office smelled of paper and lemon polish. Elena laid the note on his desk. "My father left this. It mentions Section 12 and an unmerged title. Does it mean what I think it does?" Rowe adjusted his glasses, reading carefully. "It means your father retained the farm's agricultural classification. Any sale or tenancy transfer must be signed by both registered heirs. It's a protection clause, rather unusual these days." "So Vanessa can't evict me?" He smiled faintly. "Not legally, though they might try to bluff you. People misunderstand executor powers all the time." Elena exhaled for what felt like the first time in weeks. "Can we make this official?" "Certainly. I'll draft a certified note to file with the land registry to reaffirm joint authority." When she got home, Vanessa's car was gone, but the back door was ajar. Boxes that Elena had stacked neatly in the pantry were now piled haphazardly near the hallway. A framed photo of her father and her at the village fair lay face down on the floor. She picked it up, glass cracked. Beneath it, a sticky note in Vanessa's looping handwriting. "Please start clearing personal clutter. Valuation resumes Thursday." Elena read it twice. Then she pinned the solicitor's certified letter above the mantel, right beside the brass key. Thursday came faster than expected. The white hatchback returned, this time with Gareth inside, arms folded like a bouncer. Vanessa followed, clipboard in hand. "Don't make this theatrical, Elle," Gareth said. "We just need photos for the estate file." Elena opened the front door, holding a single sheet of paper, Martin Rowe's certification with his firm's stamp. "This is the estate file now," she said. "Filed with the land registry this morning. Any sale or tenancy change requires my written consent." Vanessa froze. "That's not, you can't just." "I can. And I did." Gareth's expression hardened. "You've no right to block progress." Elena looked at him steady. "No. But I have every right to stop a forgery." The words hung in the air like smoke. Carl, the assessor, lowered his camera slowly. Maybe we'll reschedule," he muttered, retreating toward his car. Vanessa turned on her heel and followed, her heels clacking sharp against the stones. Gareth lingered a moment longer, jaw tight, before muttering, "You've made a mistake, Elle," and driving off. When the dust settled, Elena closed the door and leaned against it. Her knees felt weak, but the brass key in her pocket was warm. That evening, a message pinged on her phone from an unknown number. Hope you enjoy your victory. Check the council records next week. You won't be so smug then. Elena stared at the message, the words prickling under her skin. She typed a reply then deleted it. Instead, she opened her father's worn ledger, the one where he'd doodled in the margins when balancing accounts. In the corner of one page she noticed a tiny drawing of a lock and key, beside a note. Council renewal due every 5 years, title confirmation required. Her pulse quickened. If Vanessa had found a way to meddle with that renewal, the whole protection might lapse. Elena reached for her coat. Tomorrow, she would visit the council office herself. The next morning, the town council office smelled faintly of damp paper and instant coffee. Elena stood at the counter clutching the worn ledger, its corners softened by her father's rough hands. The clerk, a woman in her 50s with a bun so tight it seemed to hold the day together, peered over her glasses. Renewal notice, you say? Property reference. Elena slid across the folded document that had been left beneath her father's mug. Fenn and Rowe filed an agricultural trust on Dawes Farm, 2016. I'd like to check if the registration's current. The clerk typed with deliberate slowness. Dawes Farm. Here we are. She frowned. Well, that's odd. The trust's renewal came in last month, filed by a Vanessa Dawes. It lists her as acting proprietor on behalf of executor. Elena's breath caught. That's impossible. The woman pursed her lips. It was lodged electronically with a solicitor's stamp. R. Penwell and Company out of Harrogate. Elena recognized the name. Garrett's friend from that first night. Is there a way to flag a dispute? You can file a notice of objection, dear. You'll need a certified affidavit from your solicitor confirming shared authority. Elena nodded slowly. I already have one. The clerk smiled faintly, approving. Then bring it in today and we'll stop the renewal from processing. Best do it quickly before the 5-day confirmation window closes. Back at home, rain tapping against the kitchen window, Elena scanned the document from Martin Rowe and emailed it to the clerk with a concise note. Within minutes, an automated reply confirmed her objection had been received. She felt a flicker of triumph, brief but bright. Her phone rang. Rowe's voice came through, calm but taut. Elena, did you just file a notice at the council? Yes. Why? He sighed. I just got a call from Penwell. They're claiming you're interfering with lawful estate management. Don't worry, they're bluffing. But be careful what you sign from here on. People like Vanessa tend to get desperate when cornered. Desperate how? Oh, usually by manipulating perception. Making you look unstable, emotional, obstructive, the oldest trick in the book. Elena's stomach tightened. She's already been trying. Rowe hesitated, then added. If it escalates, remember. Written proof trumps everything. Keep your correspondence tidy. And maybe make copies of anything sentimental. These things have a way of disappearing. That evening, as dusk bled into the fields, Elena walked into the barn. It was quiet except for the faint creak of the roof beams. Her father's old ledger sat open on the workbench beside a box of rusted tools. She turned another page and noticed a different doodle. A small star drawn next to the words Council Hearing 21. Renewal delayed until both signatures received. Beneath that, faint pencil scrawl read. Left backup with Nora. Always trust Nora. Elena frowned. Nora. There was only one Nora she knew, Nora Whitby, the parish clerk who'd been her father's neighbor for 20 years. The same woman who'd organized the floral tributes at his funeral. Within 10 minutes, Elena had pulled on her coat and was knocking at Nora's cottage door. Nora opened it wearing gardening gloves and a wool jumper patched at the elbows. Elena Dawes. Good heavens, you're soaked. Elena stepped inside, explaining quickly. The attempted renewal, the forged filing, the note about Section 12. Nora listened without interrupting, then nodded slowly. Your father told me this might happen one day. Elena blinked. He did. Oh yes. He worried that lad of his and his wife were a bit too fond of money. Left me something in the parish files, under Agricultural Heritage Trust correspondence. Said I'd know when to release it. She shuffled to a filing cabinet and drew out a slim, yellowed envelope. Inside was a photocopy of the original agricultural agreement, and a handwritten addendum, initialed by both Fen and Rowe and George Dawes. Clause 8. B. No change of occupancy or registration shall be executed without joint consent of all listed heirs. Any attempt otherwise constitutes administrative fraud. Elena's throat tightened. He actually foresaw this. Nora handed her a tissue. He did. And he said you were the one with the patience to outlast nonsense. Back home, Elena scanned the addendum and emailed it to Martin Rowe. His reply came within the hour. Excellent find. This clause, paired with your father's signature, voids any renewal filed without your consent. I'll prepare a formal complaint to the council legal department. Keep everything secure. And don't engage directly with them for now. Elena read the email twice, her hands trembling with a mix of relief and disbelief. She set her father's ledger on the table beside the brass key and mug, aligning them neatly. Outside, the lane glowed slick under the street lamps. A car idled briefly, headlights sweeping the farmhouse wall before vanishing into the night. She felt a chill. Then her phone buzzed again. Another message from the same unknown number. Digging around, are we? Best be careful what you find. Records burn easily. Elena locked the door, heart pounding. For the first time since her father's death, fear began to mix with anger. A clean, clarifying anger that sharpened her resolve rather than clouded it. She whispered to the empty room. You picked the wrong daughter to bully. 2 days later, the parish council sent notice of a special review meeting regarding the trust renewal dispute. Attendance was optional, but recommendations would be public. Elena folded the letter carefully. Optional, she muttered, means essential. She placed the letter beside the ledger, tapped the brass key once for luck, and began preparing her file. Saturday morning came gray and wet. The parish hall parking lot was already crowded. Farmers in waxed coats, a few neighbors from the lane, even Mrs. Kemp from the bakery. Word had spread that the Dawes family's property matter was on the agenda. Elena parked at the edge of the lot, the brass key in her coat pocket like a talisman. In her tote sat her father's ledger, Nora's photocopy of Clause 8b, and the certified affidavit from Fen and Rowe. Inside, folding chairs faced a dais of mismatched tables. The council clerk shuffled papers while the chairman, a soft-spoken man named Colin Weatherby, adjusted the microphone. Next item, he said, voice echoing. Objection filed on renewal of Dawes Agricultural Trust, parties in attendance being Miss Elena Dawes and Mr. Gareth Dawes. Gareth rose first, Vanessa close behind, both in sleek navy coats. Gareth's lawyer, Richard Penwell, carried a slim laptop and that air of practiced condescension only city solicitors seem to cultivate. Elena sat a few rows back, Nora at her side knitting serenely. Colin cleared his throat. Mr. Penwell, you may state the case. Penwell rose. Thank you, Chair. The estate executor, my client Mr. Gareth Dawes, seeks timely renewal of an agricultural trust following the passing of Mr. George Dawes. My client's half-sister, Miss Elena Dawes, has lodged an objection on unsubstantiated grounds, delaying the sale and improvement of valuable local land. Vanessa smiled faintly at the audience, as if presiding over charity tea. Penwell continued. The late Mr. Dawes executed an amendment to his will naming Gareth as executor with full authority to manage estate assets. The objection has caused financial loss and community uncertainty. We therefore request immediate withdrawal of said objection. He sat down, brushing imaginary lint from his sleeve. Colin turned to Elena. Miss Dawes, your response? Elena stood, smoothing her papers. The land in question is under an unmerged agricultural trust filed in 2016. Clause 8b of the original agreement, which I have here, states that no change of occupancy or registration shall be executed without joint consent of all listed heirs. My brother's renewal filing was done unilaterally, without my consent, making it invalid. She placed copies on the council table. Additionally, the filing used a solicitor's stamp from Penwell and Company dated before probate completion. That's administrative fraud under the Local Trust Registration Act. A ripple of whispers spread through the hall. Penwell's jaw tightened. Objection, this isn't a court of law. Colin raised a hand. We understand, Mr. Penwell. Still, the documentation speaks plainly. Mrs. Whitby, You were mentioned as holding supplementary records. Nora looked up from her knitting. Mr. George Dawes left me a sealed copy of the trust's addendum for safekeeping. I opened it only after his daughter asked. She handed over the yellowed paper, her fingers steady. He knew this day would come. Vanessa's composure faltered. That's ridiculous. Why would he give her something so important? Because I ran his parish paperwork for 20 years, Nora said calmly. He trusted me not to lose things. Laughter rippled gently through the audience. Even Colin's mouth twitched. Penwell snatched the document, scanning it. This could be fabricated. Nora fixed him with a look that could curdle milk. Then you'd best accuse Fenn and Rowe too. Their signatures right there beside his. Elena met Penwell's glare evenly. And the land registry has already acknowledged receipt of my objection, pending legal confirmation. She turned to Colin. Until that confirmation is processed, any valuation or sale attempt is invalid. Colin nodded slowly. Seems clear enough. We'll enter this into record. Gareth leaned forward, face red. You're ruining everything over sentiment, Elle. You don't even live here. Elena's voice was quiet but firm. No, I just care who does. Vanessa snapped. You've always been jealous. Dad left the hard work to Gareth. Nora muttered under her breath. Hard work counting profits, more like. Colin tapped his pen. That's enough. The council will deliberate for 10 minutes. As the panel rose and moved to the side room, the hall filled with murmurs. A few neighbors patted Elena's shoulder. Others shot wary looks at Gareth and Vanessa. Nora squeezed Elena's hand. Whatever happens, you've shown them you're no fool. Elena nodded, but her stomach twisted. She'd won the room maybe, but not yet the law. When the panel returned, Colin adjusted his microphone. The council recommends that the Dawes Agricultural Trust renewal be suspended pending legal verification of joint authority. Furthermore, an audit of the filings submitted by Penwell and Company will be requested. The hall erupted in low chatter. Vanessa's face blanched. Gareth muttered a curse under his breath. Penwell gathered his files briskly. We'll appeal, he said coldly. This will not stand. Colin only nodded. You're entitled. But until then, the renewal remains frozen. Elena exhaled, shoulders sagging. She caught Nora's proud smile. Then the glint of the brass key in her pocket. Outside, rain had stopped. The village green shimmered with puddles, geese drifting lazily near the pond. Gareth and Vanessa stalked ahead to their car. She heard Vanessa hiss. You promised this would be simple. I didn't expect her to dig up a parish relic, he snapped. Vanessa shot back. Then we'll make her regret it another way. Their car door slammed, echoing across the quiet green. That evening, Elena placed the council's printed summary beside the ledger. Her father's doodles, keys, stars, half-drawn plows, now felt less like idle marks and more like signposts. She poured herself tea into the chipped mug, steam curling upward like a benediction. Yet under her satisfaction ran unease. People like Vanessa didn't stop when told no, they shifted tactics. As she rinsed the mug, headlights swept across the kitchen wall. A letter slid through the mail slot, landing face down on the rug. Elena bent to pick it up. It bore the stamp of Harrogate County Court. Elena arrived at Harrogate County Court early, the letter folded neatly in her bag. The brass key hung from a thin ribbon inside her coat pocket, the familiar weight calming her hands. The summons alleged obstruction of estate administration, Gareth and Vanessa's latest gambit. According to their lawyer, Elena's objection to the agricultural trust had delayed critical financial processes and inflicted quantifiable loss. She'd spent 2 sleepless nights rereading every paper her father had ever signed, annotating margins with sticky notes. Rowe, her solicitor, had promised to meet her at the courthouse. When he arrived, calm and unhurried as always, he gave her a reassuring nod. They're using intimidation tactics, he said softly. They're hoping the cost of defense scares you into a settlement. Elena exhaled. And if I lose? He adjusted his tie. Then they'll control the trust. But if you win, even provisionally, they'll have to answer for their filings under oath. Keep your answers short. Facts, not feelings. She nodded. Facts, not feelings. The courtroom itself was modest, cream walls, flickering fluorescent lights, a scattering of wooden benches. A small audience of locals sat near the back. Rural disputes were rare entertainment. At the claimant's table sat Gareth, tight-jawed, and Vanessa, impeccable in a gray suit. Penwell, their solicitor, arranged files like a stage magician preparing a trick. Across the aisle, Roe whispered, "Stay steady. They'll start aggressive." Judge Helen Rawdon, silver-haired and sharp-eyed, entered promptly at 10. "Case of Dawes estate renewal obstruction," she announced. "Parties present?" Penwell rose. "Yes, Your Honor. Richard Penwell for the claimants, Gareth and Vanessa Dawes." Roe followed. "Martin Roe for the respondent, Miss Elena Dawes." "Proceed," said the judge. Penwell's opening statement was polished venom. "My clients have endured 6 months of unnecessary delay in fulfilling their late father's wishes. The respondent's objection to the trust renewal has impeded lawful sale of estate property, resulting in financial harm and reputational damage. Furthermore, she's made defamatory suggestions of forgery without proof." He handed a packet to the judge. Exhibit A. The renewal application, signed under the executor's authority. Exhibit B. An email allegedly from the respondent granting provisional consent, later retracted. Elena's heart jolted. "That email's fake," she whispered. Roe scribbled something on his notepad. "Stay calm. We'll expose it." When the judge looked up, he said evenly, "Your Honor, the respondent denies ever sending that email. We intend to demonstrate its falsity via metadata and timestamp analysis." Judge Rawdon nodded. "Proceed." Penwell smirked faintly, as if indulging a child. "We've already verified it through our own system logs." Roe stood. "Then we'll compare them. May I request the original server data be presented for examination?" The judge's brow lifted. "You may." While clerks retrieved the file, Penwell turned to the next prong of his case. "Regardless of the alleged clause, my client's father executed a later amendment revoking joint consent for management decisions." He produced another document, this one Elena had never seen, bearing a shaky version of her father's signature. "Dated February 2022, Penwell said smoothly. "Witnessed by Mr. and Mrs. Dawes." Roe's pen paused midair. "Convenient witnesses," he murmured. Elena felt heat rise in her face. "That's not Dad's writing," she whispered. Roe stood. "Your Honor, we dispute the authenticity of that signature. The original trust documentation from 2016 specifies joint consent, and we have the solicitor's witnessed addendum proving its continuity." "Do you have that document?" the judge asked. Roe passed forward Nora's photocopy and the certified letter from Fenn and Roe, both verified by this firm's seal, predating any alleged 2022 amendment. The judge compared them, lips pursed. "The handwriting discrepancy is striking." Penwell shifted uncomfortably. Then came the pivotal moment. The IT officer entered with both copies of the supposed consent email. Timestamp from claimant's record. March 18, 7:42 p.m., she said. "Server origin Dawes Holdings internal network." Roe asked, "And from the respondent's account?" The officer shook her head. "No outbound mail on or near that date. The metadata on the claimant's copy shows manual creation, not a transfer." Penwell stiffened. "That's impossible." "It's not impossible," the officer interrupted. "Just amateurish." Laughter rippled faintly through the courtroom. The judge raised an eyebrow. "Mr. Penwell, I'll expect an explanation before we proceed." Penwell's voice thinned. "There may have been an internal miscommunication." Roe leaned toward Elena, whispering, translation, "He's panicking." By midday the tide had turned. Roe summarized crisply. "Your Honor, the respondent has acted within her legal rights to prevent an unauthorized renewal. The claimants, meanwhile, filed false documentation, forged communication, and presented an unsigned amendment witnessed only by themselves. That's not estate administration, it's manipulation." Gareth leapt up. "You think you know everything. You didn't care about the farm until there was money involved." Judge Rawdon's gavel cracked. "Sit down, Mr. Dawes," Vanessa hissed. "Control yourself." The judge sighed, then turned to Elena. "Miss Dawes, you've been quiet through most of this. Do you wish to add anything?" Elena rose slowly. "Only this, Your Honor. My father's house isn't just a property. It's where he taught me to read, where he wrote letters by hand because he trusted paper more than promises. He left that clause because he believed family should agree, not bully. I'm simply keeping that promise. The courtroom was silent. Judge Rawdon nodded once. I appreciate clarity. At 3 o'clock, she delivered her decision. Pending handwriting verification and server authentication, the claimant's case for obstruction is dismissed. The Dawes Agricultural Trust shall remain suspended until legal review is complete. Costs are reserved pending outcome of the forgery inquiry. A gasp ran through the audience. Gareth muttered an oath. Vanessa's mask finally cracked, her mouth opening in disbelief, eyes darting to Penwell, who was already packing his briefcase in furious silence. Roe touched Elena's shoulder. You did it. For now. Elena managed a shaky smile. For now is enough. As she left the courtroom, Nora was waiting outside with a thermos of tea. He'd be proud, love, she said simply. Elena took the cup still warm. I think he'd tell me to keep my guard up. Nora's eyes twinkled. And to keep copies of everything just in case. That night, the farmhouse felt almost peaceful again. Yet a lingering unease crept through her when she noticed a faint smell of smoke near the window. Outside, under the half-moon, a small patch of grass near the shed smoldered, blackened edges of burnt paper scattered in the wind. She crouched, heart hammering. Among the ashes was part of a letterhead. Fenn and Roe solicitors. Her father's original deeds. They tried to destroy them. Elena pressed her palm to the damp earth, extinguishing the last glow, whispering to herself. They think the truth can burn. Let's see how they like fire that leaves proof behind. 3 days after the hearing, Elena sat at her kitchen table, the smell of scorched grass still faint outside. The farmhouse felt fragile again, safe in daylight, uncertain by night. She'd begun scanning every surviving document, sending digital copies to Roe's office, in case something else mysteriously vanished. Then, one Tuesday morning, an anonymous email appeared in her inbox. Subject: You don't know me, but you need this. Check the attachment before they delete the rest. Someone who's tired of watching lies. Attached was a zip file titled Dawes Trust for Amendments internal.zip. Her pulse quickened. She hesitated, then called Roe. I've just received something from inside Penwell's firm, I think. Forward it to me immediately, he said, voice crisp but cautious. And don't open it on your system. We'll handle the extraction safely. By afternoon he called back, excitement breaking through his usual reserve. Elena, it's genuine. Internal email threads, file edits, everything. The so-called 2022 amendment? Drafted entirely by Vanessa. Not your father. There's even a note from Penwell telling his clerk to match the signature to previous style. She felt the air leave her lungs. They forged everything. Yes, Rose said. And now we can prove it. That evening Nora arrived with a basket of scones and that steady, knowing smile. You look like someone who's just realized the fox fell in its own trap. Elena told her about the leak, the emails, the metadata trail. Nora listened quietly, buttering a scone. Good. But you'll need to make it public. Quiet victories don't stick with folk like them. I can't exactly post it online. No, but you can present it where they least expect, at the community audit. Elena blinked. What audit? The one the parish council holds every June, Nora said. They review local trust funds, agricultural grants, land transfers, all public record. They'll be there, hoping to show they've got control again. Show them differently. Elena's lips curved into the first true smile in weeks. You think I should? I think your dad would have insisted. For the next 10 days, Elena and Roe prepared quietly. The forged document trail was airtight. Timestamps showing Vanessa's edits. Scanned drafts with her initials and metadata. A deleted chat between her and Penwell's assistant referencing, cleaning the letterhead. Roe called it a perfect chain of deceit. We'll file a motion to reopen the case for fraud and present evidence at the public audit, he explained. If we can prove Vanessa's interference involves solicitor malpractice, the court may void their authority entirely. Elena rehearsed her words late into the night, pacing between the old cupboards and the kettle's hiss. The chipped mug never left the counter. A small solid anchor in a sea of shifting paper. The day of the audit arrived cloudless, uncomfortably bright. The village hall buzzed with chatter. Farmers, counselors, even curious teenagers perched at the windows. Gareth and Vanessa stood near the front, smiling for acquaintances, pretending serenity. When Elena entered, their expressions soured immediately. Vanessa approached, voice low and sweet as syrup. "Here to gloat again? You should know, the council doesn't like troublemakers." Elena simply replied, "Then you'll fit right in." She walked past, took a seat beside Nora, and laid a neat folder on the table. The chair of the audit, Mrs. Alderson, began reading the agenda. Item 4. Dawes Agricultural Trust, pending renewal and recent legal dispute. Penwell, ever the showman, rose first. "My clients have resolved all discrepancies and wish to proceed with renewal. Any alleged improprieties were misunderstandings, unfortunate misfilings by junior staff." A murmur rippled through the crowd. Then Mrs. Alderson looked up. "Miss Dawes, you requested to present evidence. You may speak." Elena stood, calm as the morning frost. "Thank you, Chair. What I'm about to share clarifies why this trust was contested." She opened her folder and held up a printed email chain projected onto the wall via Rose's small portable screen. From Vanessa Dawes. Tar. Penwell. Subject. Amendment draft. "Can you make it look like Dad's handwriting? Copy from the 2016 file. Gareth thinks we can finalize by Monday." A collective gasp rose from the room. Vanessa went pale. "That's taken out of context." Roe interrupted smoothly. "We also have the digital file history showing her edits, including metadata timestamps. And this," he said, displaying another screenshot, "from Mr. Penwell's assistant. Use scanner number 2, it masks pen pressure." Penwell's jaw twitched. "Your Honor," he began, then realized there was no judge here, only the watching community. Mrs. Alderson's voice was calm but deadly. "Mr. Penwell, are you suggesting your firm did not participate in this fabrication?" I can't comment until our internal review," he stammered. "Then we'll record your silence," she replied. Gareth slammed a hand on the table. "This is a witch hunt." Nora's knitting needles clicked once, sharp as punctuation. "No, lad. It's housekeeping." Laughter rippled again, this time louder. Vanessa rose, voice trembling. "You don't understand, the farm needed selling. We're drowning in bills. He promised to share the profits." Elena's tone was even. "You mean my father's farm? And his profits were meant for maintenance and community grants, not private pockets." Mrs. Alderson raised her gavel gently. "We'll call an extraordinary vote." Within minutes, the council declared the trust frozen indefinitely pending criminal investigation into forgery and misrepresentation. The room broke into whispers. Gareth looked as if someone had pulled the floor out from under him. Vanessa sat very still, her eyes fixed on the brass key Elena had unconsciously laid on the table beside her papers. After the meeting, as chairs scraped and people trickled out, Penwell approached Roe, face drawn. "This isn't over." Roe smiled faintly. "No, Mr. Penwell. It's only just beginning. We'll see you at the malpractice review." Outside, sunlight cut through thin clouds. Nora patted Elena's arm. "That's the pivot, love. Now comes the reckoning." Elena nodded, slipping the brass key back into her pocket. "And after that? Then you'll breathe," Nora said simply. That night, Elena stood in the doorway of her father's old study. The burned corner of the floor still smelled faintly of ash, but the rest of the house felt lighter, as if exhaling after months of held breath. She touched the chipped mug, then the ledger, whispering, "Nearly there, Dad." Her phone buzzed again, this time an email from Roe. "The court has reopened the case. Forensic report confirms signature forgery. Formal hearing scheduled for next week." Elena smiled. Perfect timing. The morning air in Harrogate carried the scent of wet pavement and lilac from the courthouse gardens. Elena walked through the doors with a quiet determination, her file case neat, her brass key clipped discreetly inside her coat pocket like an amulet. Nora had insisted she wear her father's old wool scarf. "For luck and backbone," she'd said, and even Roe gave an approving nod when he saw it. Inside, the benches were fuller than before. The hearing had drawn attention. Whispers of forgery and solicitor misconduct had traveled fast through the county. A local reporter waited by the aisle, notebook in hand, sensing the kind of human story that quietly exposes greed in Sunday supplements. Vanessa sat rigid, a fragile facade of composure cracking at the edges. Gareth slumped beside her, avoiding everyone's eyes. Penwell's usual smug assurance had faded into gray exhaustion, the kind of weariness that comes when truth is about to surface. Judge Rawdon entered, brisk and unsentimental. This hearing concerns Dawes Agricultural Trust versus Dawes et al., reopened under grounds of newly discovered evidence of forgery and malpractice. Counsel, proceed. Rose stood first. Your Honor, what we now present isn't conjecture but authenticated evidence. The so-called 2022 amendment and consent email are confirmed forgeries, produced within the offices of Penwell and Company at the direct request of Mrs. Vanessa Dawes. He passed forward printed exhibits sealed in plastic sleeves. Here are the original metadata logs, internal memos and witness affidavits from Penwell's own clerk, who has since resigned and cooperated with investigators. Judge Rawdon skimmed the documents, expression unreadable. Proceed. Rowe gestured toward the projection screen. Your Honor, Exhibit 14, internal correspondence between the claimants and Mr. Penwell's office. On the screen appeared Vanessa's email. We can't risk waiting for Elena to agree. If we control the deed, the rest follows. Just copy Dad's style. Use the sample from the will draft. The courtroom fell into stillness so sharp it seemed even the fluorescent hum had paused. Rose's voice remained steady. Your Honor, note the timestamp, 1 day before the renewal was filed. Accompanying metadata confirms it originated from the Dawes home IP address. Penwell rubbed his temples. We were instructed. The judge looked up. By whom, Mr. Penwell? He hesitated. By my clients. Vanessa's head snapped toward him. You promised you'd protect us, she hissed, loud enough for everyone to hear. Penwell turned to her, bitterness seeping into his tone. I protected you until you sent those files from your personal account. You didn't even try to cover your tracks. Gasps spread through the benches. Gareth buried his face in his hands. Judge Rawdon raised a hand for silence. Enough. The facts speak. Rose stepped forward again. Your Honor, my client, Miss Dawes, has endured months of harassment, property interference, and reputational harm. We ask that the forged filings be voided, the trust restored under the original Section 12 clause, and costs awarded to the respondent. Penwell stood shakily. Your Honor, my firm deeply regrets the administrative oversight. Call it what it is, Rawdon interrupted sharply. Fraud. He wilted. Fraud then. But my clients were misled by emotional distress, not greed. At that, Elena rose for the first time. Your Honor, may I speak? The judge nodded. She faced her brother and sister-in-law. I don't want your apologies. I just want the truth to stand where lies were written. My father left one rule, that both his children agree before the farm changes hands. It was meant to keep us together, not tear us apart. Her voice caught slightly, but she steadied it. You could have asked. Instead, you forged, bullied, and burned what you couldn't own. So I'll keep his promise and this house safe from you. There was a long silence, broken only by the shuffle of the reporter's pen. Judge Rawdon folded her hands. Thank you, Miss Dawes. That will do. By late afternoon, the judgment was delivered. The court finds the 2022 amendment and related correspondence fraudulent and hereby void. Executor powers of Gareth Dawes are revoked pending criminal inquiry. Authority of the Dawes Agricultural Trust reverts to equal joint trusteeship under Section 12, as per the original 2016 deed. Costs to be borne by the claimants, including solicitor penalties for malpractice. Penwell exhaled like a man deflating. Vanessa looked ready to stand and argue, but Gareth's whisper stopped her. It's done. Stop. The judge added quietly, Mr. Penwell, your conduct will be referred to the Solicitor's Regulation Authority. He only nodded, defeated. Outside, the sky had turned the pale gold of early evening. Reporters clustered around the courthouse steps. Rose spoke briefly, confirming the ruling but refusing to gloat. Elena slipped away through the side exit, choosing the quiet lane over spectacle. Halfway down the path, she heard a voice behind her. Miss Dawes. It was the court clerk, carrying a sealed envelope. For you. The judge said to deliver it personally. Inside was a short note, handwritten. Facts, not feelings, but your composure did the law proud. Take care of that home. H. Rawdon. Elena smiled, the tension finally loosening from her shoulders. That evening, Nora joined her back at the farmhouse. They drank tea from mismatched mugs while the last light glowed through the kitchen windows. You did it, love, Nora said. Proper justice. Without shouting or scheming. Elena set her mug down. Dad would have liked that part. Your father'd be saying, keep records, not grudges. Nora chuckled. They both laughed softly. In the silence that followed, Elena pulled the brass key from her pocket, turning it in the lamplight. The metal had dulled with years of use, but it still fit perfectly in her palm. She placed it on the table beside the ledger and whispered, all locked up again, the way it should be. Later, as Nora left, a soft breeze moved through the doorway. The house creaked. Oldwood settling comfortable again. Elena closed the door and turned the key once, hearing the familiar click echo through the hall. Justice, she realized, doesn't always roar. Sometimes it just sounds like a lock turning home. A month later, the farm was alive again. The air smelled of wet grass and hay. The apple trees near the stone wall hummed with bees. Elena stood on the porch, mug in hand, watching a repair crew patch the roof. The brass key lay warm in her pocket as if the house itself had a heartbeat again. The legal storm had settled into quiet aftermath. Gareth and Vanessa faced formal charges for forgery and false representation. Pinwell's firm had suspended operations pending investigation. Every newspaper from Harrogate to Whitby had run some version of the story. Rural woman exposes legal forgery in family land dispute. The coverage had embarrassed Gareth enough that he stopped calling, stopped arguing, and eventually sent a short letter. She'd found it waiting one morning on the step, postmarked from a rented flat in Leeds. Oh, I was wrong. About everything. I let fear and Vanessa's ambition twist things. I never wanted to hurt you or tarnish Dad's name. Please don't think of me as a stranger, even if we can't fix this right away. Gee. She'd read it twice, then tucked it into the back of her father's ledger between 2 pages of accounts. Forgiveness could wait, she decided. Like fields left fallow between harvests. The local council had reached out too, asking if she'd consider serving as co-chair on the Agricultural Heritage Committee, the same one her father once advised informally. You've shown a good grasp of bylaws, Mrs. Alderson had said over the phone, half amused. We could use a steady hand that doesn't scare easily. Elena had laughed softly. After this year, I think I qualify. Now she spent her mornings reviewing proposals from young farmers applying for small grants, replanting, equipment, preservation of hedgerows. Felt right. Continuity, not control. Nora visited often, always with baked goods and gossip. Word is, she said one afternoon, Vanessa's gone back to her sister's in Durham. Solicitor there, no less, though I doubt she'll be drafting deeds again. Elena stirred her tea. Do you think Gareth will face prison? Maybe a suspended sentence, Nora said. He's cooperating, I hear. Admitted most of it in writing. Elena sighed. Then that's enough. Later that week, Rose stopped by with a final envelope, stamped with the county seal. It's official, he said, smiling. The trust is reinstated. Co-trusteeship under your name and Gareth's, though he's relinquished all management rights for the next 10 years. Elena blinked. He agreed to that? Voluntarily. He asked that you sign his portion over to a community grant fund. I think he wants to make amends. She hesitated. And Vanessa? Filed for separation. Sometimes the law isn't the only reckoning. Roe looked around the kitchen, his eyes landing on the ledger and mug on the shelf. You've kept everything exactly as it was. She smiled faintly. They remind me that details matter. Even the chipped ones. He chuckled. I'll drink to that. That night, Elena sat by the fire with the ledger open across her knees. Between faded numbers and notes, she traced the doodles her father had left. Stars, keys, margins filled with reminders like fix gate post before frost, and tell Elle to check the lease dates. She ran her fingers over the page where he'd scrawled, keep deed unmerged until both children sign. She whispered, done. A soft tap at the window made her look up. Rain again, thin, steady, cleansing. She closed the ledger, placed it beside the brass key on the mantel, and watched the firelight catch their edges. Somewhere beyond the rain, She could almost hear her father humming from the barn. A memory folded perfectly into the sound of dripping eaves. 2 weeks later, Elena drove into town for the quarterly council meeting. Her nameplate now read E. Dawes, co-chair Agricultural Heritage Trust. The hall was the same one where she'd once faced Vanessa's fury, but today smelled of fresh varnish and tea biscuits rather than tension. As the meeting ended, a shy young man approached her clutching a folder. "Miss Dawes? I'm Tom Archer. Applying for the equipment grant." She smiled. "Of course. You're the lad from Ripon who wants to restore the old dairy barn." He nodded eagerly. "It was my granddad's. I didn't think they'd fund someone my age, but after your case, people say you fought for fairness. That gives me hope." Elena felt warmth rise to her cheeks. "Then let's see if we can keep that hope funded." When he left, she sat quietly for a moment, realizing what her father had meant by stewardship. Not owning but preserving for others. On the way home, she stopped by the cemetery. The grass had grown tall around her father's headstone, wildflowers pushing through the cracks in the stone base. She knelt, brushed them aside, and laid the brass key at the foot of the stone. "Dad," she whispered, "the locks are changed but the door's still open. Just how you want it." Then she smiled, wiping a stray tear with the edge of her sleeve. Back at the farmhouse, a letter awaited her. Another from Gareth. "Oh, I heard about the council roll. You're doing something good with the place. I don't expect forgiveness yet, but maybe someday I can help the way Dad wanted us to. I'm taking classes in land management, trying to understand what I nearly destroyed. G***. She folded it carefully, slid it into the ledger beside the first letter. Not closure exactly, but continuation. Nora arrived soon after, bearing rhubarb crumble and her usual wry humor. "So, Madam Chair," she teased, "what's next on your empire of integrity?" Elena laughed. "Roof repairs first. Empires can wait." They ate by the window while rain rolled across the fields in silver sheets. Outside, a pair of swallows darted beneath the eaves, building a new nest in the same corner they'd used last spring. "See," Nora said, nodding toward them. "Even they know when to start over." Elena smiled softly. "Maybe we all do." Weeks turned into months. The scandal faded into local legend, one retold in pubs and markets as that farm case where the papers beat the lawyers. Every so often, strangers would stop by the gate just to see the Dawes place, where the woman with the ledger and the brass key had defended her father's trust. Elena didn't mind. She'd learned that silence after justice isn't emptiness. It's peace. One September afternoon, she sat at her father's desk writing a letter to the council about next year's harvest grants. A shaft of late sunlight caught the chipped mug beside her. She traced the crack with her thumb, smiling. It was imperfect but whole, like the life she'd rebuilt. Outside, the swallows swooped across the fields, and the steady creak of the weather vane sounded like applause. Elena placed her pen down, looked around the sunlit room, and whispered, "Every crack shows use, not weakness." Then she turned the brass key once more in the lock as dusk settled, certain that, at last, the house and she were truly at peace.